Welcome to the second part of the Dogwood. In this episode, we're going to basically tape, color, finish off and put the dogwood together in a beautiful natural spray. At the very end, I will also show you how you could incorporate the dogwood and the magnolia together if you wanted to incorporate these both into a craft project or for a wedding cake. So let's get started. So for the dogwood, I'm going to start first of all how we made the components. I'm going to start off with the coloring in the center. So we're going to start off with, remember we've got two compact centers, all right? So we have two compact centers. One of them, of course, has got petals on it and one doesn't. So both of these, so we're going to use lime green. So I'm going to take a little bit of lime green here. So with a little bit of lime green, I'm just going to sort of brush this over the center. Now obviously on this one here we can come to the back. We won't be able to do that on the one, but just put a little bit of lime green just to brighten it up. And that's why I said when I showed you in episode 1, it doesn't matter whether you use the more mossy green because both of these are going to be dusted in the same way. And then we're also going to just brush this. Don't load too much color when you do this center part here, but just use your brush and just come into, just to sort of brighten up that center. Okay. And then what we're going to do is on the one here that's got the little flowers on, again, you're just going to brush this around the base. Just going to brush this, and you just really need to brush this on the bud ones, not on the flowers, because we're going to be painting the inside of the flowers. So just going to just sort of brush those with the lime green color. Now, next thing we're going to do, and we're going to be using these colors for several different projects, so you can just leave that to one side. Next thing we're going to do is going to take some yellow gel and some white gel. For air drying clay, you're going to just use white acrylic paint and then either yellow acrylic paint, or you can just add some yellow powder to your white acrylic paint. So we're just going to take, so this is obviously because I'm doing sugar here. So we've got some white gel here, and then we have some yellow gel. You're going to mix this together to make a sort of a dark yellow. All right. And then you want just a little tiny bit of vodka if you need it. Just have that on the side there. Now, these are called nail art brushes. You can find them on the internet. They're very inexpensive, but they're basically for nail art. Very, very fine, short bristled, okay? But you could also use, like, for example, a 10-0 brush. This is a 10-0 liner brush, which you've used before as well. But the nail art brush is just a little bit shorter. But as I said, they're very inexpensive. But just you want a really, really fine brush. And what we're going to do here, we're going to just take the brush, and then on the so the flower here, which is going to be the compact flower, that doesn't have any yellow on that. All right. So then what we're going to do is going to take the next one. All right. I'm going to just come in here closer with that camera, and we're going to just do a little bit of painting onto here. So you're going to use your brush, and you're just going to, again, you might want to put your magnifying glasses on a little bit because it's quite tiny here, but just going to and use the back of your hand or your finger, and then you're just gonna paint those little bit of yellow onto the top there. So you can do like a little, see, like a little cross. All right, so you can actually just follow here like that. But just if you put just a little bit of paint onto there. And you don't have to do this on every one, but you can just do, like, follow the line that you have there. So you can do, just sort of have, like, follow the 4 lines that you have. And then on some of them, you can just do just like a little bit of yellow, just almost like in the middle there. Because what this does, it just sort of emulates the look of the bud just starting to open up. So, but you don't have to do this on every one, but you can just do some little bit of yellow onto there. And as I said, on some of them, you can do the little lines here as well. But as I said, with acrylic paint, just with your, so you're just going to put just a little bit of yellow. So you see how you just have a little bit of yellow in the middle here. Now on the flower, you see I'm just bending this up here. So on the flower, what you're going to do is you're actually going to paint the inside of the petals yellow. So you're actually using your brush, and you're going to go into that inside of the petals with a small brush. Move that to the other side of me. Just going to paint that inside of the flower, and also stamens as well, because even if you use the yellow stamens, they're going to be a little bit softer yellow. So you're just going to paint that inside of the flower yellow. And again, you can just put some little lines onto here. As I said, if you just do a search for nail art brushes, they're just sort of inexpensive, but I found these work really well because they're sort of a little bit like a spotter brush. And again, you can just put a little bit of yellow, and it doesn't have to be done on every one. All right, but you see how you've just got a little bit of yellow here. And this would be like the flower just starting to sort of split open. Okay, because when the flower opens, you know, the flowers, the buds are green, as you remember. And then what we've done here is that when they split open, then they're obviously exposed, and the top of the flower is yellow. So you just do that on the flowers, and then, as I said, on the middle green one, the compact one. So that would be the coloring on those. And then these, you just want to wash them and just obviously use your finger to get a nice point on them. Just be careful washing them so you don't damage the little bristles on there. Okay. So now I'm going to move on to the, in the order of how I did the things. So next we're going to move on to the petals. Now on your petals, what we're going to do is, and I've already got some of these dusted, we're going to take some quarter width floral tape. And with some quarter width floral tape, we're going to tape down about 2.5 centimeters down here. So just going to tape down, just slide this up to the bottom, just going to tape down. And then go down about 2.5 centimeters, about 1 inch. Okay, so you tape your 8 petals, and then you're going to, what we're going to do then is going to put the coloring on here. And I'm going to start off with the base color, and it doesn't matter if you do the base or the top, but it's written first of all base color. So we're going to use the light apple green. We've used that quite a few times before, so we're going to put some light apple there, and then I'm going to put some prairie green color here. This is the prairie green, which again, color we've used a lot. And all I'm going to do here is on the center of the, just going to just brush the light apple just up just a little tiny bit up the bottom here. So I'm going to come about, on the larger petal, I'm going to come about 1/4 of the way up the petal. Okay. A little bit too much color on there. About 1/4 of the way up the petals on the, and then on the, so on the slightly smaller ones, again, you're going to come up about 1/4 of the way up those. So you do that green, so that's going to be front and back, about 1/4 of the way up the petals on there. And then you're going to take here your prairie green, and your prairie is just going to go right at the bottom. You know, this is a color combination we use quite a lot, where you have this sort of very soft green with the slightly darker green. So like on the, for example, ward lily and things like that, we use that same sort of color combination. All right. And then we're going to take, next, we're going to use a little bit of a pale gray. Now, this is going to be cornflower and gray. This is called Dove Gray. I'm just going to take approximately about equal amounts of these two. So it's about a 1-to-1. In your download, it's shown as a 1-to-1. Remember, there'll be a sample of the color as well. So you're just going to get this, so you're just using about equal amounts of cornflower, cornstarch, and gray. And what we're going to do, this almost on the dogwood looks a little bit like almost like an ash. So you're just going to take this and just going to dust that just gently where you're on both sides, front and back. So the color I'm showing you is done front and back, but you just have this soft gray just at that top part there and the top part there. You do that on all of the petals, okay? And then we're going to take a mixture. Now, the color in the story of the dogwood I talked about earlier on, this represents basically dried blood. So we use a 2 parts brown to 1 part aubergine color. So you're going to just take, you know, like about two amounts of brown, and then about half that amount of an aubergine. All right, I'm just going to mix those together. So 2 parts brown, 1 part of the aubergine color there, like that. Okay. And you don't have to, you know, it's just approximate amount on that. And then what we do here, we're going to take this color. Now I'm using a small round brush, and I'm going to put it into the little hole there and just go around like this, and just going to go around the hole like that. This is from the back. All right, so you're going to get this color. And then from the front, now remember the front is right, you're just going to again, just going to do the same thing on the front. And then on the front, I would just sort of brush it just a little bit down here like this. All right, so just a little bit down here like that, but not, you know, sort of that. So that's going to give you the color. So you see how you'll have this sort of color on your petals like this. But I said it's basically brown with a little bit of, if you didn't have like this sort of aubergine color, you could use like a plum or even a little bit of red in there as well, okay? But as I said, so that gives you the, so those will be your petals. And then when we do the small flower, I've already done part of this, all right? So when we do the small flower, we're going to use the light apple green here. Because remember, this flower is, as I said, this is the one I showed you in the right at the beginning of episode 1. It's going to be mostly green. So you're just going to put just like a light dusting of the green sort of all over these petals, because this is a young, immature flower, okay? And then we're going to take prairie green, which is the prairie. Prairie is going to be dusted at the bottom of this. All right, so prairie green is dusted at the bottom of this, coming up about halfway up. And prairie green is also going to be dusted just at the base of the petals. So you're just going to go in at the bottom of the petals here with the prairie here, like so, okay? And then we're going to take, now we don't put any gray on there because no really point, because you won't really see the gray on the green. But then again, you're just going to take the color here, there we go. And just going to use same sort of technique, just dust a little bit of that color here and a little bit of the color here on the other side, okay? So you're just going to put just that color. So that just goes on to the, as I said, you have this real soft green. But you see, it's obviously, the reason why we make it in white is you can get this very nice natural look there, like that, all right? So that is going to be your, that's how you do the, obviously the tight one. We then move on to the buds. Now, the buds we're going to be thickening. We're also going to be doing this, we will be doing this on the flower as well. So we're going to use some half-width floral tape. And I generally do this before I color, all right? So we just want to make the stem thicker. Because although dogwood is quite a dainty flower, its stem is quite thick, all right? So what you're going to do there is you're going to come from about two-thirds of the way down the wire. And then you're going to work to the top. So you're going to come to the top of the wire. And then you're going to come down to the bottom. So we'll have a total of three layers of wire on, 3 layers of tape on there, okay? And then we're going to texture this. So just like we did on the magnolia, using your scissors or your wire cutters, you're just going to texture about half of it. All right, so just going to texture these. These ones have to be textured. And then you're going to, and then when we color this, we're going to use the lime green. So we're going to use the lime green, which is the color we used for the center of the flower. That's going to be brushed over about the top half of the bud, all right? And then we're going to use apple green, which we haven't used yet. Apple green we'll be using on the foliage in a moment. So then we're going to just brush apple green from the bottom up. So you almost have this sort of limey green to an appley green color on the bud. Okay, and then we're going to take a little bit of the browny red color. I'm just going to brush that on the top, because the bud has this, because if you think about it, all right, when this bud opens, okay, it's going to form this petal here, okay? So you know, that's almost like how the color would be. So this is actually going to be your, like, well, when it opens up, will be your little top piece. So just going to brush a little of that color into the top there. Okay, so you're going to have the color on your buds. Okay, so that gives you the color on the buds. And then the final coloring will be on the, here we're going to do the leaves. Now again, the leaves, this is a little bit like like on the leaves, this is going to be a bit like on the magnolia. So we're going to tape So again, I'm going to come down about 2.5 centimeters. So just slide the tape up, going to come down about 2.5 centimeters, an inch. You're going to come up. I don't do this with half width because this is a bit like when we did the petals, so it's not too thick looking. So just going to just tape, slide up, come down, going to come up. You're going to come down here like so. Okay, so that brown will just come up to meet the base of the leaves. And then we're going to just go into texture with your scissors. Just gently, be careful because obviously this is a fine wire. You don't want to decapitate the leaf. And then we're going to take your apple green. So we're just using the apple green on the base of the buds and then on the leaves at the moment. And we'll be adding a little bit of this to the flower once we get it assembled. So you're just going to put apple green all over because these are quite a bright color. So you're just going to put some apple green over the leaves all over. Okay. And then we will finally finish that off with just a little of the brown aubergine color just at the base of the leaf, just front and back. So you just put a little bit of that at the bottom of the leaf, front and back. And here's the to here. Okay. So that will give you the coloring onto the leaves. And then we will be using a little bit of apple green for some finishing off, and also a little bit of chocolate dust as well. But you can get rid of the colors here. And then what we will do is we will, so then we're going to just gently, we're just going to lightly steam the leaves. All right, so we're just going to steam the leaves a little bit. And once we've steamed the leaves a little bit, we're going to be using some spray. So we're going to just steam our leaves, and we're going to, and of course, like on air drying clay, what you would do here is just like I showed on the magnolia, you would lightly spray this with hairspray, with the unscented hairspray. And then what you would do is you'll use like the Sculpey glaze or any type of craft glaze onto there. Now I've already got some of my leaves done, all right? So I'm just going to just lightly steam my leaves here. And then again, we're just going to put this, obviously you can do this in a box, or of course just go outside and spray this. Now when you're using like the Sculpey product, if this was air drying clay, you could actually spray these with hairspray, assemble the dogwood, and then you could paint the leaves afterwards. Like sometimes when I teach, like I teach classes like where sometimes the students will assemble, let's say for example, cherry blossom and the cherry blossom leaves. They do all the coloring. And then once you have done that, then you could come back and just brush glaze. You can't use spray lacquer, of course, once it's assembled with the flowers, but you could of course use a brush-on lacquer or a brush-on glaze. And then we're just going to put our leaves to dry for a couple of minutes. So when I come back, I'm going to show you assembling of the dogwood, and then we're going to move on to the final assembly. So now we're going to move on to the assembly. Now this is the smaller of the two flowers. So this is the immature center, doesn't have the flowers, just has a few buds painted with a little bit of yellow. So I'm going to take some fine tweezers, and you're going to just bend this just at a slight angle. Now dogwood, think of this a little bit like an orchid or a lily. You have two sepals and two petals, all right? So we're going to assemble the two sepals first. So now on the half open flower or the semi-open flower, the main flower will bend the petals at a right angle and they will sit directly out from here. But what we're going to do is we're going to come down. You can see there's a little tiny gap here between the bottom of the flower seeds and then where we start taping, because we want this to be a little bit more half open. So what we do, we're going to use quarter width tape here. So just going to go round. So I'm going to have one here, and then I'm going to have one directly opposite. All right, so think of this a bit like when we do an orchid, we do like the head and the two legs, all right? So those will be like your sepals, and then your petals will be like your arms. Here we have two, and then we have another two. They're actually almost like in two sets. Okay, so I'm going to go around here. So you see how they sit directly opposite each other. But you see there's a little tiny gap, but you won't see that once you get the other petals in place. There's a little tiny gap here at the bottom there, so that the flower sits a little bit more closed up. As you'll see on the open one, we won't do that. And then we're going to take the next two, will go here. So that's going to sit here. And then we'll go here like this. So these will just sit. And, you know, some varieties of dogwood, the petals can be wider. You know, I showed you, of course, like some of the different varieties. We're just going to have your two, because there's going to be a little tiny bit of an overlap just there. So you see, like, these ones are on the outside of those ones like that. Now you can just come down just a little way, break off your tape, and then just like so, this matches with the other components. Of course, this is used 12 wires, but they're skinny wires. But anyway, so you're just going to take down, and again, just going to come down, and then going to go back up again just to make this a little bit thicker. And you can either come up and then down, or down and then up. It doesn't really matter, whichever you prefer, whatever feels more comfortable to you. But you're just going to tape 2 more times with half-width tape. The only one we didn't do that on was like on the leaf, because the leaf, we don't want it to be too thick. So you see how you're going to get then the natural branch of the dogwood. And of course, these will need to be steamed as well. And then you can texture this. So we can texture this. Again, at least texture about halfway down. All right. And then I'm going to take just a little bit of the green and just a little touch of brown onto there as well. So I'm just going to use just a little bit of green color on here and a little bit of brown. So I'm going to use some apple green. So this is the same color we used for the leaves. So a little bit of apple green just goes around the base here like that. And a little bit of just chocolate brown. So think a bit like how we did on when we did the magnolia. Just going to use a little bit of chocolate. The chocolate is just going to come sort of like just onto the very, very base here. And see how you have your nice color there, like so. Again, as I explained on, when we did the magnolia, if you're especially using air drying clay, you could go in there as well with a little bit of air drying clay and just blend that in, so you don't really have the defined seam. But, you know, obviously when we do sugar, you can't really do that, so you don't see it. So that would be the sort of the half open flower. And then we're going to do the open flower. And so with the open flower, so here we're actually going to bend these a little bit more at a right angle, not a complete right angle, but just a little bit more here. Okay, and then you're going to take these, and then these will actually sit right up against the base of it, because these will actually sort of sit, because it's a more open, so these will actually sit more open here. Again, we're just going to go around with your first one. The second one will sit directly opposite, so that will sit directly opposite here. Like that. And then you'll have but if you were doing 2 fully open flowers, like, you know, 2 full flowers, what you could do there is you could do like I just showed when I made the half open one. So if you were doing 2 fully open ones, again, what you would then do there is you could have a little bit of a gap. So you see how that would come down. So it really depends a little bit, like if you're going to be doing, like, as if you were doing 2 or 3 fully open, but this will almost represent, like when it goes up there at the bottom there, that would represent, as I said, like a fully open flower. Because as I explained, when you look at dogwood flowers, they almost look a little bit like a butterfly sitting on the trees. So the actual flower is sort of flat like it sits like a butterfly. Okay, so that's going to go here. Again, we're going to tape down just a little ways. Then we're going to take our half-width tape. And then we're going to do another 2 times with your, so down and then up, or up and then down, whichever you prefer. Just everything is going to be consistent then, like the branches. All right, so we're going to give you a flower. And again, we'll just take that. And of course, you can do both of the green and brown at the same time. So a little bit of the, it's just, as I said, the apple green. So that's going to just come around the base. And a little bit of the brown on here as well. So it's going to go just at the very, very sort of base of the petals. Let's have a little bit of the brown color here. Then we also will put this onto the flower here as well. So we're also going to put that onto the half open flower. So a little bit of the green around the base here and a little bit of the brown at the very, very bottom. And then once we get that completed, you can leave your green and brown, because when you actually tape this all together, you might want to do like I did on the magnolia, add a little bit of color to that. Now then what I'm going to do is I'm going to steam the flowers and steam the buds. All right, so we've got those, and then we will be ready for the final assembly. You can see here these are your flowers, so really beautiful, and you can see the sort of the slightly longer one and then the shorter one there. So we're just going to steam this. So it's going to just steam, just gently. Again, head with air drying clay, just a good spray with, as I said, unscented hairspray. But on the internet, you'll be able to sort of look at the different color combinations. And as I said, you know, if you're wanting to try the pink one, you know, there's obviously lots of different shades of pink, but either the darker pink, because again, if you wanted to make this as a gift, of course, this is a really nice flower, and as I said, you know, because also of its significance, the story behind it as well. It's a sort of a lovely flower. I know obviously we're past Easter, but obviously this is a nice flower to give as a gift. You did it in air drying clay. So of course, if you're doing it for somebody that likes pink, you could of course do this in a pale pink or a darker pink. So here we have the components. All right, so we've got our, as I said, our flowers and buds, and then we have our leaves. So next thing we're going to do is going to go on to do the assembly. So now we're going to move on to the assembly. Now we're going to do like two branches, a sort of longer one and a shorter one. So if you want to use them either side of your magnolia. So I'm going to start off with a small and a large leaf, where I'm just going to stagger them. So I'm just going to have them, you can see the small leaf and then the large leaf here. Now we're going to use, we have 6 22 gauge wires, full length wires. All right, so we're going to start off with one of the 22 gauge wires, and at the intersection where the two leaves meet, which remember are a little bit staggered, we will start off with our half width floral tape, and we're just going to tape around here. Just going to tape around, and then what you're going to do, just take down just a little ways. And then you're going to put in the second wire and the third wire. And the reason is sometimes if you put all 3 wires right at the beginning, it gets a bit like sort of lumpy there. So you're almost like staggering those wires in. So you see, and then the third wire will go into here like that. So you get more of a graduation. So again, that's little tips for sometimes when you're doing stems. All right, so we're just going to come down here. So just going to come down just a little ways on there. So just going to do just like a little part on here. Okay, so it's about 5 centimeters. All right, and then I'm going to go up, and I'm going to come down. Again, remember, you don't have to be too particular with your taping, because you almost want it to look sort of natural here. On this thicker part here, I'm going to use my wire cutters. I also forgot to show you to steam the leaf, the buds, so you can steam the buds, but also I'm going to just re-steam everything, because I'm going to add a little bit of color onto the branch as well. Now here, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add, now the buds and the flowers, they all sort of sit at a right angle like this. They sit flat, all right? So you almost like the buds come up, so almost they just sort of sit like this, all right? So they sit like this. Just going to tape those. I'm going to tape the first bud in. Again, just going to go around, up and down. And then I'm going to put in my flower. And then at this intersection here, especially on this one, just like I showed you on the magnolia, we're going to just use your veining tool, just, or like a metal scribe needle. I mean, basically anything sort of sharp, just to sort of create that nice shape there. Again, just gonna do there. So we have about 5 centimeters, and then we have about 2.5 centimeters. But also, like if you're going to do this, let's say in a vase, you may want to, obviously you can do this however you, but almost you take your pliers and just right at the bottom of the flower, you're almost going to see it's going to sit like this. So you see it actually almost like sits like that to the flower. All right. So, similar to like cherry and things like that, but it's just that the flowers, a lot of times when we have flowers, we have them a little bit more that way, but they're actually going to be like almost flat. Again, just going to put this in. All right. So then I'm just going to again go down, up and down. So just going to have your, again, use your Dresden tool, just going to blend this in. Just going to texture this. Okay, then I'm going to have another. So then I have this is a short wire. These are half length, half wires. So then I'm going to have like a little sub branch coming off of here. So I'm pretty much going to do the same thing, but I'm going to do it the opposite way around. You see how I've got, so this is going to just go, so you've got small leaf and then larger leaf on the right hand side. This I'm going to do on the left. I'm going to do the same thing with my sub branch, but I'm going to use, as I said, just a half length wire here. So then the easy thing to do is to take a separate piece of tape. So just going to take your, so you just get almost like the opposite of what you had before. So again, we're just going to take a single, just going to tape this on. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is just once you come down just a little way, you're going to add your second wire and then your third wire. So you see how your wires will just, as I said, just be a little bit more graduated there. Again, you're going to come about 2 inches, about 5 centimeters down, up, and then down. And then here, we're going to have the little buds here. About 2.5 centimeters. So they're both the same. So you do about 5 centimeters, about 2 inches, and then you're going to do about 1 inch of those. And then we're just going to have that. Going to have another leaf here, because this is going to be just almost like a sub branch there. Then 1, 2, 3 here. Again, just blend that where that meets. I'm just going to texture, and we've already got texturing on the buds and the leaves, so we're just going to really just texture the main stem here. All right, so because the bud will actually sort of sit like this. Okay. Then we're going to be putting in the main dogwood flower. Okay, here. So it's going to come down. So what you want to do here is allow about the size of the dogwood from the stem, about the size of the length of the dogwood here. All right, so it's going to come down here. Remember, you have photographs and things there. So you're going to come down, you're going to come up, you're going to come down, All right, so you're basically going to do about, just obviously about, an inch or so, and then about 2 inches. So, you're just going to vary your sort of your sizes. So you just graduate down there like so. And then here, I'm going to have this branch coming out from the side here. Okay. And then we're going to take another 3 of the half length wires. It's easier to work on it with so you're just going to use another 3. So we've got 3 full length wires and then 2 sets of half length wires. All right, so we're just going to put this together. So you see it's more of an open branch. It's going to just tape down, up and down to secure this. Just going to work that. Just going to texture it. Okay, and then this one is going to have, it's going to be the longer branch. So this is going to have your main dogwood here. Again, just going to just sort of bend the stems. You see how the stem is bent like this, and then the main dogwood is going to just sort of sit into position here. So you're just going to have that sort of sitting into position. Okay, and so you see how it sort of sits on the branch like this. And then we're going to come down. Now, if you were going to put this, like if you're going to make these 2, especially if you're working in air drying clay, and you're going to do the 2 of them, you can leave these wires long until you sort of know how you're going to use them, all right? What I'm going to do is going to show you, put in the dogwood is going to come from here, is going to come in where our magnolia is. So it's going to sort of come from the bottom of the magnolia, all right? So I'm actually just taping down, as I said here, about 5 centimeters, again about 2 inches, and I'm going to go up, and then I'm going to come down, and then I'm just going to finish off the rest of the wiring just as a single thickness, all right? But remember, it really is dependent on how you're going to use your dogwood, because if you're working in air drying clay, you might want to, for example, put this in a grapevine wreath and on the front door, for example, for spring, which is really nice. And so of course, as I said, you can just trim this. So basically this is sort of all thicker, and then this is just being taped here. All right. So just going to get your shape of your flower there. And again, just going to use my veining tool. Just going to texture. Just going to just bend that to the right sort of shape. You see how they sort of almost like sit a little bit like sort of butterflies sitting onto there. Okay, so and remember this is done with my my flexi paste, the white. All right, so of course it's still it's a nice, because you don't really have to worry about breaking it, because this stays for about a month. It'll stay flexible, so you can still bend the petals and things like that. So it's not quite as fragile, but also doing your dogwood like this with the this technique is not quite as fragile anyway, so it makes it much easier to do. Now, so that's the first grouping, and then the second grouping. So remember, on your supply list, it's going to have 6 full length 22 gauge wires, and then it's going to have 6 half length. So we're not using the half, we're just going to use the 22 gauge wires on this one. So on this one, we're going to use this, and this is just going to come up, if you're going to put both of them together, it's just going to come up from the back here. All right, so what we're going to do there is just going to take your leaves here. So I'm just going to do this like I did though on this one, it doesn't really matter if you have this to the large one to the right or to the left. But again, we're just going to take your leaf here. So 2 leaves, and then we're going to come down, going to come up, then put in the second and the third wire. Just remember, stagger your wires a little bit, the second and third one. All right, so you see how I've just staggered them just a little bit. But that's a good way when you want to start a branch off, and they're going to come down, going to come up, and come down. Then we're going to texture this. And then we're going to put the bud on here. I'm going to have the bud come into the left-hand side on this one. Then we're going to just tape down. I'm going to come down to sort of the end of where the wires are here of the bud and things. I'm going to go up and then down like this. Again, just going to texture, and then we're going to just add the half open, well, you know, the sort of not such mature dogwood, because remember, this is the one that's going to be a little bit more, see the difference between the two flowers. You see this one is going to be a little bit more, and I said this will just go up here. So again, just going to bend that. Now, although this was made with 12 30 gauge wire, it's very sort of actually very nice. It's very organic, so you can bend it really easily. And again, if you're going to be using this like in home decor or whatever, nice thing about that is that you're going to be able to, you know, bend it, put it in wherever, how you ever want it to go. And again, I'm just going to come to the end of this wire, all right, 3 times. 2, 3. And then I'm just going to tape down to the bottom. But if you need, like for example, if this is going to be, you want it on quite a long stem, you know, this holds its weight, and this is sugar, I mean, but obviously air drying clay is going to be a lot lighter. But if you do need to, or if you're going to want a more visible stem, you could take another 3 wires and just add there to fill that in. All right, so really it's going to be, a lot of this is going to be dependent, because some of you might want to use this in, say, on a grapevine wreath on the front door, or you might want to put it into a vase. You know, you might want to do this with other flowers, so you can put this in. And then again, we're just going to just texture this. Okay, and I'm just going to put just a little bit of color onto here. So I'm just going to add just a little bit of the chocolate brown. Now you can do all sorts of things with this. You can also, for example, take your, like we did when we made the, I showed you on the cherry blossom, on the classic cherry blossom, using, put in some moss on here. But I'm just going to use a little bit of brown. Now be careful you don't have too much loaded on the brush, because you don't want to get that onto the petals there. Just going to bring just a little bit onto there. So this just sort of, as I said, just gives a little bit of contrast to the color in there, like so. Just where your floral tape meets. But you have this nice sort of open, sort of look for your, so just bring in a little bit of the brown onto here. And then we can just re-steam that. Just going to re-steam this. And these will be your dogwood. So now of course, when we use dogwood on a cake, you might use dogwood in a very sort of a little bit more, like I say, a cherry blossom branch, a little bit more compact. So a lot of this is going to be dependent on how you're going to use this. But here I'm just going to just re-steam this. Now we've got the texture on here, just going to re-steam it. I'm going to do the same on the half one here. So you'll have your two, you have your 2 sprays of dogwood, all right? And as I said, we're going to use this, when I come back, I'm also going to show you how to use these independently, in two sprays. Like this is going to go up, this is going to come down from the magnolia. But you can see that you also could just take these 2 like this, and then you could actually, tape those together. If you wanted to put this like in a vase or something, you could use a bamboo skewer, and you could actually sort of put that into into a bamboo skewer here, and then of course then you could actually use that as your spray, and that could go into a vase where it would sort of obviously stand up like this. All right. So anyway, so that's a dogwood, but a really sort of beautiful flower, and of course, you know, the pink looks really nice as well. And even with the magnolia, because the magnolia is a little bit creamy yellow, the white looks really nice, a very sort of fresh look for the two components. So here we have our, as I said, our finished dogwood. So here we have our beautiful dogwood, and I'm going to just show you to finish this up. But remember, you could take these, tape them together, use these in a vase, you could put them on a wreath, so you could have obviously one going one way, one the other way with the magnolia in the middle. So really lots of options. Of course, you could make some extra buds and flowers and things as well. But I wanted just to sort of show you in this particular lesson, almost like the life cycle of the dogwood. And because they're going to sit like this, although all the leaves are on one side, but because we're going to do one up and one down, that would sort of balance the, you know, the spray. So I'm going to take my magnolia, and of course the magnolia is stunning on its own. And of course this was made in air drying clay, so this is a lot lighter. In fact, that weighs about the same as the magnolia. So anyway, so what we're going to do here, first of all, I'm going to have coming up from top here, I'm going to have my dogwood coming up behind here. So this is going to be the dogwood that is going to sit at the top. So I'm just going to tape that. So that's just going to be taped at the bottom of where just bend the wire a little bit, because when the wires get long, it's always better to have the wires a little bit too long, because then you can always, you know, trim them as needed. So then all I'm going to do here is just going to take this and tape this together, because this would be like, as I said, if you were doing them into an arrangement. And then I want to have my dogwood, so my dogwood is going to come down here. So I'm going to take that about 2.5 centimeters, right, about an inch after the dogwood, where everything meets. Just going to take my wire here, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just bend this down. You see, like at an angle like this, all right? And just sort of see how that's going to look. So I actually need to come in a little bit tighter. So, you know, this is like in floristry, it's a lot of just a question of trying things out, and then just to see how they're going to look. So you can see how you bend that at a right angle here, because this I want to have coming up from, this is going to come down here. Because what we want to do is we're going to create like almost a little bit like in floristry, what we call like a Hogarth curve, or sort of a spray. So a little bit like how we've done some of our other sprays. So I'm going to take my dogwood into here. So really just where the leaves of the magnolia meet, that's where I'm going to just sort of tape everything together. Of course, you can also do full width tape there as well. Personally, I wouldn't recommend any ribbons or anything like that with this personally, because that sometimes can be a little bit distracting. You could use like some twigs or something like that if you wanted a little bit of height for your arrangement. But you know, during the different projects, sometimes we're using ribbon, or like, for example, we're using like to look like natural, like little twigs, which you could make out of floral tape. And I'm just going to take the wires here. So again, we're just going to put these together here, and you can see how you're going to have your bud here and then the flower. So you can sort of see how the buds and the flowers go really nicely together. All right, and then of course you could use a vase. This is like, for example, just an off-white type of vase. So you could use sort of something like this type of vase container, a glass vase. You know, put some filler into it, so you would have sort of something that is going to work with your, if you're going to use this like for sort of home decor or something like that. So, you know, there's lots of options there. As I said, on a grapevine wreath. So here we have the, as I said, the finished dogwood and magnolia spray. And then, you know, you can just sort of move these around, so you get you can bring the buds out. You can just give yourself a little bit of, that can sort of just trail down. And so you get your nice nice spray here with your two flowers for May. So really beautiful, and obviously both, as I said, stunning flowers in their own right. I just wanted to show you how you would put them both together, because if you do want to do this as a project, remember my magnolia is air drying clay, my obviously here is sugar, but if you were going to do this for home decor, obviously I would recommend you do everything in air drying clay, because obviously durability and things like that. But also wanted just to obviously always show you different mediums, so showing you sugar and air drying clay for different projects. So I hope you've enjoyed the month of May in spring flowering trees, and we'll have a lot of fun making the magnolia and the dogwood. Remember, you have many color variations, especially with the dogwood, and there's nothing wrong with making a peach magnolia to go into your living room, so you basically can take those techniques and change out the colors, which you often see in silk flowers. So if you go into a craft shop and you look at magnolias, you can see come in many colors, blues, greens, peaches and pinks. So you can do obviously different fantasy colors as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this obviously projects, and I look forward to seeing you next month when we're going to be starting a brand new project. Sweet wishes, see you soon, bye.